Friends, my friends, Joe here at Reverb, coming at you from my home studio these days. Today I'd like to share a story about a person who, to some of us, might be kind of a lesser known pioneer of rock and roll history. Sometimes when we take a look back on our rich music history, we come across a moment in time that had the perfect composition of talent, innovation, passion, geographical proximity. The combination of all these elements has the potential to deliver something special, something that could change the course of history forever. In this case, the story begins on Shaftesbury Avenue in the Soho neighborhood of London in the early 1960s. It's a story about a man named Ivor Arbiter. Arbiter opened Drum City in 1961. Shortly after, he secured the rights to carry Ludwig drums, an American brand. A very influential rock and roll drummer had his eyes set on a Black Oyster Pearl drum kit, a kit that only Ludwig made. The year is 1963, and that influential drummer is Ringo Starr. Arbiter sells the kit to Ringo right out of that shop on 114 Shaftesbury Avenue. Then, Beatles manager Brian Epstein suggested that a Beatles logo be showcased front and center on the bass drum. And as the story goes, Arbiter sketched the now famous Drop T Beatles logo on a cigarette package and had it printed on the bass drum head for £5. It's amazing the simplicity with which some legendary moments take place. Ivor Arbiter was not only making sure that he was distributing highly coveted brands and instruments to notable players of the time, but he was also developing innovative ideas for brand new gear. Probably the most famous story in this regard is the creation of one of the most iconic fuzz pedals in history. Just a year after opening Drum City, Arbiter opened Sound City, which was centered more around guitars, basses, and amps. He modeled a new fuzz pedal on Gary Hurst's Sola Sound Tonebender 1.5 circuit. He also had the idea of using the base of a mic stand as a durable casing. The result? The Fuzz Face. This was in 1966, and then it didn't take long for Jimi Hendrix to pop into Sound City without a fuzz face and leave Sound City with one. So this was February 1967, 24 Rupert Street in London. Hendrix buys a fuzz face, the fuzz face that he then uses at Woodstock in a performance that would change music history forever. Just a few months later, another prominent figure of our rock and roll history will turn up at Sound City. Eric Clapton. He buys a 56 Strat. This is May of 1967. He names it Brownie, uses it on Layla, and decades later, that guitar sells for nearly $500,000. Now, these are just a few examples of Arbiter's influence on the industry. The list of achievements goes on, from transactions with artists like Brian Jones and George Harrison, to developing Sound City amps for Pete Townsend, along with Dave Reeves, who went on to create Highwire. Or how about this one? A military gear technician by the name of Pete Cornish ran the Sound City repair shop. Later goes on to build pedal boards for some of the most significant artists of all time, including Paul McCartney, Brian May, and David Gilmour. All of this history with origins at Shaftesbury Avenue and Rupert Street. We read about iconic moments in artist biographies or music magazines. We get to experience them visually through some of our favorite music documentaries. It's fascinating to think about these moments and the timelines that led to them. A transaction at a guitar shop, a hurried printing of a drum logo for £5. When I learned the story of Ivor Arbiter, I learned a story about time, place, and innovation. And the beauty of those three things combined can lead to unparalleled events. Thanks so much for watching. I hope everybody's doing well, and we'll see you next time here at Reverb. Cheers.